I'm going to start with you, Tina. How would you describe your experience as a leader in your industry?
So I have been in long-term care for 25 years.
Wow.
Yes, so I have worked in different levels. I have run nursing homes, assisted living communities, independent living communities, and currently I am managing a Alzheimer's dementia unit. So I haven't missed a beat.
Yeah. Tim, could you tell us a little bit about your job as well?
Yeah, I've been here for 11 years and been in the field for a little under 13 now. And really my main role, I guess, pre-COVID was a lot more hands-on with the residents, trying to engage them in various activities, but with a focus on big focus on like purposeful activities. So things with that help make them feel important, things that they've always done in their lives, typically through work and family. Now I'm sort of jack of all trades, master of none. But yeah, that's about it with that.
Okay. To you, Mom, how would you say COVID has affected your ability to lead your team?
Well, that's a tough question.
Yeah, I know.
I've been fortunate that I have a very strong management team who are dedicated to our seniors. So they haven't challenged me at all, but they've been challenged because the caregivers in the beginning were very frightened with this virus, and some chose not to work any longer. You know, they chose to stay at home. Some refused to be tested. So it has challenged our community with staffing. It has taken us probably, this started maybe back in February, Tim, right? So it's taken us a good 9 months to get staffing to where it needs to be. And when Tim states that he was hands-on, he was literally hands-on. He provided care. He couldn't really do his job because our staffing was minimal, to the point where it was scary at sometimes, like what's going to happen next. But we got through it. We stayed strong as a management team to keep forging ahead. We stayed safe inside work and outside of work. As you know, Alexander, I'm very, very safe outside of work. So that kept us here and keeping our residents, you know, cared for, well cared for. But the biggest challenge was staffing with COVID.
Yep, absolutely.
And we're proud to say, I'm going to include Tim, because he's very careful outside of work as well. But so far to date, and I hate to say this out loud, but none of our residents have had COVID. So, yay.
That's absolutely amazing. Tim, did you want to pitch in a little bit on how COVID's affected you and your job?
Oh, yeah, I mean, certainly it's affected the day-to-day routine of my job. I think more than anything, it's sad of how it's affected the residents, because we definitely are not able to do the things we used to do. So yeah, like Tina said, I mean, particularly in the early going first few months with staffing, I was working on the floor a lot more, kind of a job I had never really done, but and it wasn't just me. I mean, a lot of people pitched in and took some shifts on the floor. So I think we've, like Tina said too, we have such a strong management team that we've been able to sort of come to terms with it, and we've got a new routine sort of built in and a good idea of what all of our roles are currently, and we're prepared to change again at the drop of the hat.
Yeah, it definitely seems like you guys have a great plan in place. Absolutely amazing. Scott, did you want to ask a couple questions now?
Yeah, sure. So obviously there's a lot of unique challenges that come with what has happened over the past 9 months, but kind of backing up to before that, there's also a bunch of unique challenges you guys have had to face just leading a large group of people, whether it be the residents or maybe a larger management team. So Tina, I'll start with you. I would just like you to tell us about your experience leading a large group of people and like what types of things worked and what types of things were different compared to leading a smaller group, a more tight-knit group of people.
Well, actually, they're the same, Scott, because what you want to do for any manager, you lead by example. And that's most important. You know, I know I have to sit here at my desk and do paperwork and fill out reports for upper management, but there are days, and Tim can vouch, that I'm out there cleaning, literally cleaning rooms. You never want anyone to feel like it's beneath you what they do. So you want to lead by example, and that's with small groups and with large groups. And you want to trust through verification, and I think that's where a lot of supervisors fail. You know, they think they're supervising, but they're not really following up on their staff. You know, you want to keep everyone, you know, to where they need to be. They need to be doing their job, and having those tough conversations that people like to avoid is key to being a strong leader. And as these two men on this call know, I am never shy away from a difficult conversation. Let's go. Let's have that conversation.
No, you don't.
Because that's what keeps people, you know, if this is the job for you, great. If not, we need to move on, because these seniors have lived a long, quality life that they need to continue on in here. And so we try to surround ourselves with people with that same motto.
Yeah, that's really great, especially those ideas around accountability and conflict. We'll actually probably talk about that a little later when we get into talking about dysfunctions of teams, but that's definitely good. Tim, do you have anything to add to that?
I would probably just piggyback on it. I mean, I think personally, I lack some of those leadership qualities. I think I lead by example. That's sort of my MO. But one of the things I'm trying to learn, particularly from Tina, is just how to have those difficult conversations, because that is an important part of being a leader. And it just goes to show you, like, leadership, it's a constant work in progress. Even though, I mean, I've been 13 years I've been here, and I've had, I shouldn't say my own staff, one staff member, but you know, for a good portion of that. And one of the things I have really tried to work on is to have those difficult conversations. So, like, again, you can never just become complacent, I guess. You can't feel like, oh, things are good and I've got it all down. You have to always recognize your weaknesses and try to work on them and take any bit of advice you can get.
Yeah, it's definitely really great. So another thing I just wanted to posit to you guys is, obviously there are like some traits that make a great leader, and you talk about leading by example, but within your interpersonal skills, like, why do you think people trust you? Actually, Tim, we can start with you this time if you'd like.
I mean, my personality, I don't know, I guess I feel like I'm a pretty likable person. I get along with most everybody. I think if you just treat people with respect, and you, like your mom said, or Tina said, you know, if you lead by example and you show people that you're willing to do the so-called dirty work, that goes a long way. I know that's not really personality, but yeah, I think just being respectful of people, talking to people, and I hate to say it like this, like, you're their equal, because I am their equal. I don't want to say that making you think, well, I'm dropping down a level to to be, but no, because everyone is equal. So I think that's the biggest thing.
Can I piggyback on what Tim stated? Because
Absolutely,
he does not give himself enough credit. Tim is a great listener, and he is very empathetic, and remind you all that we run a dementia care unit, and the majority of the residents know Tim by name. That is how much he has impacted them. His love for the residents show through his actions. He is very kind, he is very caring, and he takes the time. And that's exactly what anyone needs, especially for the residents and the staff. He takes the time for them. He doesn't rush through anything. Even though he's running around here like a madman, he still, when they need that listening or that helping hand or that heart, they go to Tim, and they all know his name.
No, that's really fantastic, and definitely taking the time to care about people is something that makes the team very successful. So I believe I'm passing it on to Angela now for a few questions.
So group culture represents the unity that like people create when working together with the same goals in mind. So we were just kind of wondering, like, how do you implement like the culture among those that don't directly work with you or that you don't interact with directly? Bertina.
That's a tough one. You know, we do have a mission here, a mission statement at Brookdale, like any organization will have, and it's compassion. Help me here, Tim. Being compassionate. I forgot our cornerstone. Can we like? But anyhow,
COVID and COVID. it's all we can think of right now. It's all.
Anyhow, we as managers all display that, and I think every morning we meet at 9:30 every day. We talk about what's going on in each department, and let's face it, there's some associates we cannot touch because they're not here for the right reasons. But the ones that are here for the right reasons know what we're all about, and that culture comes through because right now we're in a very small community. We have 52 residents, which is fairly small, and so our staff is fairly small. So we've created this family amongst everyone, and they know that we have an open door. At any time they could come to us to discuss any problems, any issues, that we're going to listen to them and we're going to help find solutions. They have all the support they could possibly want if they choose to use it. That's the key. You know, it's a two-way street. You can't just think it's someone else's responsibility. You have to take ownership in that. And that's what makes you thrive in an environment or not. It's what you put in, and as long as they're willing to give back, which we are, that determines the culture. But you kind of wean out those that don't want to be part of the culture that you're trying to portray. So it happens naturally, Angela, believe it or not.
Yeah. So just with like COVID happening and everything, would you say that you have noticed like distinct changes in like aspects of the like collective culture, or has it like stayed generally the same?
So it's definitely changed. It's been horrible. I'm not gonna lie. You know, I feel like, yes, we've kept our residents COVID free. That's great. But their quality of life, you know, they're not able to come out into some main areas. They're not able to visit with their families like they typically would. They are able to visit, but it's not the same. You know, they have to be 6 feet apart. They have to have the face mask on. It's not, they're confused as it is. They have dementia. So imagine those extra things. You know, they see someone that, oh my gosh, that I haven't seen in a while because they're scheduled appointments and we can only have 4 at a time. It takes them a while to adjust, you know, so those quality visits aren't there. Their quality, and not that Tim's not trying, but we can't have group activities anymore. So that collectively has changed their day. And so it's been difficult. And so then it puts more pressure on the staff that's on the floor, because they're trying to navigate all this with all this confusion and dismay. It's been difficult. It's been difficult. What did I leave out, Tim?
So I would just say, I mean, I think more than anything we did is, again, in the early going, especially, like we had some staff that were burning out. There's no doubt. They were working extra hours, doing different types of things. Again, like your mom said, or Tina said, you know, they're not getting the support. You know, typically they'd have a large group of them gone doing an activity. Well, now everybody's sort of still there. They're having to keep an eye on more residents. I think the biggest thing that kind of helped to keep the culture going, at least a positive feeling, is just letting your staff know that what they're doing is appreciated, even by simple things like, I mean, just buying pizza. You know, like, oh, you guys have worked a double shift today, we're gonna get pizza for everybody, or just saying it, really, like going to them and saying, hey, you guys, thank you so much for doing what you're doing. Your job is really important. You can see how much the residents need you, and just those little things really can go a long way.
And that goes perfectly into what Scott has to ask for this next part.
Okay.
Yeah, so like you said, like imparting trust and just making sure people feel appreciated is so important when being part of a team and leading a team. And so we kind of wanted to roll into some questions about trust. And do you remember, like in your workplace, do you guys do trust exercises? And then like, do you find them effective, or is there any ways that you think you could find them more effective if you already do them?
Yeah, we haven't done anything trust exercise. We haven't done anything as a group because we can't collectively come together, which has been difficult. But again, for me, it's just building the relationships is what's going to create that trust. I mean, we could do exercises where you fall back and I try to catch you. I mean, that's just, that's the thing of the past. It's open conversation and making sure that you're listening and not just talking. And I think that's a key to any like leadership role is listening, because they're going to tell you one way or another what they're lacking. You know, I will say all the time, I will supply any tools you need to get the job done. But sometimes they just need to be heard. And yeah, they're frustrated. You know, they were frustrated very much in the beginning. It's definitely has calmed down since, but I feel like we're going to hit another peak here. But in the beginning, they wanted to be heard, you know, and we did as much as we could, being on the floor and doing what we needed to do as far as a corporate level. But it's listening and making sure that what you're hearing, you're reacting to. If they feel like they're talking and there's no reaction to it, or no feedback or no solution to what they're bringing to you, there's not going to be any trust. So it's just following through with what they're asking for and knowing that you're going to be there. And you could tell them, you know what, I could tell you right now, I'm not going to be able to provide that. Like, we think we should get hazard pay. You know, we think we should get $2 more. Yeah, that's not happening. You know, we're a corporation. It's not anything that I can, you know, do at my computer. I can't just give someone, you know, $2 extra or more. But I can bring it to a different level. And at least then they know that I've listened and that I'm going to follow through with it. But then I have to come back and say, yeah, that didn't work. Anything else? You want pizza?
Yeah,
Let's get
right.
pizza for lunch. So I think that's what's the biggest trust builder, Scott, is just listening, hearing, and not just feeling like they're, you know, they're nothing. Because in any role that you all take in the future, look up and you look down. Look both ways, because that's what's going to be most important. Don't forget who you were, and don't forget where you want to go, and don't change who you were because of where you want to go. And I think that's what's made me successful and well liked in my role. I don't act any different than Tim. He's just a special person. He's got a kinder heart. But that doesn't mean I'm less important because I have difficult conversations. So you find your team where it's just well oiled and you work together nicely, and we all kind of supplement each other nicely, truly. What do you think, Tim?
Yeah, I really not much to add. I mean, I think like she had touched on, just when the management team picked up a lot of these shifts on the floor, I think that's a good example. Is they trust you to not put them in a position where they can't handle something, and that establishes that trust. They see that our sales and marketing director is working the shift on the floor. They say, oh, she's going to fill the building, but she's also going to make sure that when we're shorthanded, they're there for us. They're not going to put us in a position where we're going to fail because we don't have the proper staffing. So I think that's really all I can add to that.
Yeah, that's definitely some really great insight. And just a question that has come up to me here is like, obviously you guys have talked about a lot, how a lot of things have been in flux, and that's including your team. And so in class, we actually did an activity where we created a team charter and kind of set team expectations. What unique challenges do you guys think come with kind of forming a new team, and how do you set those expectations in your workplace?
Wow, new teams are hard. Can I tell you just my experience? So the team that I came into had so much more years at this community than obviously me. I was new. And I knew right off the bat, the nurse next door, and she'll laugh. She did not like the fact that I was coming in. You know, she looked at me, didn't really chat with me. You know, one time she fell, like literally rolled out of her office. She took a tumble, and all I could do was laugh out loud because it's here you are. You can't talk at me, but I'm gonna laugh at you. And then I ask if you're okay. You know, I think you have to just break that line. You know, there's always that. Help me find the word, but there's always something you just
beginning
have to get
tension.
through.
Yeah.
And so you got to find that. And then if it doesn't happen that way, where someone could tumble and you could make light of it and then talk about it, you have to sit down and have, okay, this is why I'm here. You know, this is my objectives. Why are you here? How can we make it work? How can we work together? You have to come to a mutual respect. But I was lucky enough that I'm so lovable that they just, I'm just teasing Tim, but they know I'm real. You know, I keep it real. I never have an agenda for myself. And I think as any leader, once you have an agenda for yourself, that's where you're going to have mistrust. So my agenda was for the community, for the residents, for the staff. And I think after a few weeks, they realized that. And then we were a pretty strong team right away. What do you think, Tim? You didn't give me enough credit. I wish I chose someone else for this call.
No, I was just about to say, what I was going to say is, I think one of the things that you have, one of your great strengths is, you came to a team that had a lot of different, we'd been together for a while, but I think as a manager, your most vital role is making sure you can't, the old adage, you can't stick a square peg in a round hole. So you have to take what you have to work with and you have to make it work. Oh, my automatic light just went off on me. Sorry.
That's all right.
But yeah, like, she did a really good job of learning everyone's strengths and letting them, she didn't try to change anyone, I guess is what I'm saying. Like, we all have massive flaws in our games here. But she found what we were all good at, and she put us in a position where we could succeed with what we were good at. And that, I think that's probably the most difficult challenge, I would think, to being a new manager. I've never really had to experience anything like that because, again, I've only ever really had one person that I've managed. So coming into a new place like this with all these new people for her, and additionally, they're already sort of ensconced in what we're doing here, and we've got our own game plan already. So having to come in and do things maybe the way she wanted to, but again, allowing us the freedom to sort of tell her what has worked. Again, just being open and listening to people.
Yeah, so just for an example, this is going to seem real minute, but it was a real big challenge for me. When coming into this community, my boss, my regional director, the one thing she wanted me to do was get rid of 2 cats. Like, that was it, because the previous executive director, her office, when I came into it, filthy. Like, there was cat fur everywhere, there was dust everywhere. It was disgusting, just like Tim's office. Disgusting. But anyway, she's like, you got to get rid of the cats. So I come into the community and I was like, and Alexander can vouch for me, I have a bleeding heart for animals, regardless. Maybe not a mouse, but definitely dogs, cats, and those animals in general. So I was like, okay, so I tried to come in real strong and just, we got to get rid of these cats. And I'm sure all they're thinking is, really, you're coming in here and all you're thinking about these cats? Wouldn't you know, those cats are still here. They're here because you can't come in. Like, that was probably the worst thing for anyone to ask me to do, is to get rid of these 2 cats that they brought in to be pet therapy for our residents. One actually does socialize with the residents. One is in my office constantly. But my office is clean, it's fur-free, and it's dust-free. And my boss hasn't brought it up again. But my point is, you have to manage based on your surroundings. Was the cap the priority? Absolutely not. Was the financial, aspect more of a challenge? Yes, that's what I needed to concentrate on. I didn't deal with the cats. We learned to clean, we learned to make sure that everyone had their responsibilities, making sure that, and it's Brian, our maintenance guy, making sure the cats are well fed and taken care of. But that was the dumbest thing ever, but as someone coming in, you're like, oh, this must mean something really big to my boss. Well, it's because ultimately it was filthy. This place was filthy, but we cleaned it up. And we did it as a team, not me alone. We had the entire management staff out here painting, freshening up this building. But again, we did it, not Tina alone, we did it as a team. And I think that's where you build trust and relationship, is by doing things together and having the same vision. So that's the moral of my story. You've got to do things together.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. We've talked in class before about like the strengths and weaknesses and playing towards people's strengths and like giving people different tasks that work with what we're trying to accomplish as a whole. And I just found the story really interesting in regards to that. So there's one kind of main topic we'd like to talk about to end our little podcast here. And it's talking about dysfunctions of a team. So there's a really interesting book we read called 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, but they are, I'll list them off right here: absence of trust, fear of conflict, lack of commitment, avoidance of accountability, and inattention to results. So obviously in healthcare, some will apply more than others. So which do you think is probably the most prevalent? And then how do you see that problem being fixed in the future if there's a major problem with it in your workplace?
Well, I think we touched on almost all of those points.
Yeah.
Did we not? Can you go through them one more time?
Yeah, so I mean, absence of trust, we obviously touched on that, and just working with your team, being together. Fear of conflict, which you talked about a lot. Lack of commitment, which is maybe one we didn't touch as much yet, but again, in healthcare, maybe that's not as prevalent. Avoidance of accountability, and then inattention to results.
What was the last one?
Inattention to results.
I'd say probably the biggest concern we have would be lack of accountability. I would think probably find that in most jobs, really.
Yeah.
Expand on that, Tim. Like lack of accountability. Yeah.
I think just the people taking responsibility for something that goes wrong. I think a lot of times people are so concerned. I think what that does when you don't take accountability is it actually affects all other aspects of those things you mentioned. Like if I do something wrong and I refuse to take accountability for it, then there goes trust. I'm clearly not paying attention to results if I'm not taking accountability for something. If you don't take accountability for something, you're not trying to better yourself. And I do think that's again, I think we talked about complacency a little bit. I think that creeps in, and shifting blame to another person. Again, you can't function that way. So I think that's the biggest hurdle that we often have to get over.
Yeah. And just to touch on what Tim's stating, like I'll give you an example, a real life example. We have our resident care associates, so they provide direct care to our residents. Their responsibility also is to do light housekeeping, when they're in the resident rooms. That has been absent. Why? I have no idea, but they're not wanting to do it. Now we have, a brand new housekeeper, and they're putting it all on her, so they're not taking accountability for their part. And then it lays on on the housekeeper, who really, she's the deep clean each week. Now it's lying on her, and she's like, who wants to do this? It's too much. I may lose someone because someone else isn't taking accountability of their job. So when there's that unevenness, it causes turnover. And that's the last thing we want, is turnover, because our residents love the same faces. They get to know you. They become, you become their safety net. They like seeing the same faces every day. And honestly, turnover creates so much time and money for any organization. It's just one thing you want to do is keep good staff. And when the supervisor doesn't keep that one person accountable, it's a trickle effect. It affects the whole team.
Yeah, absolutely. And is that something that you think really is only working on an individual level, or do you think there's something as leadership that you guys can do to kind of boost that accountability?
So I need to get on top of my nursing supervisor to get on top of that person, because the last thing you want to do is undermine your nursing supervisor, because that's her staff, and then if I go automatically in, then she's lost that respect as the nursing supervisor. Do you see what I'm saying? So you want to make sure that your managers are holding their staff accountable, so that way they're being respected by their staff. Once you start cutting lines, but if I have to, I will, but I don't feel comfortable doing it, because then I'm stepping on toes. And I feel like my managers are quite capable of handling their own staff. But we bring it to the attention. We talk about it at our morning meeting, like this needs to be discussed, and if it continues to be a problem, either the supervisor is not having that tough conversation, or that staff member refuses to do their full job. So then we have to take action.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that again goes back to trust, and just trusting the managers to do their job, and to just trust everyone on the team to do what they're supposed to be doing.
Exactly.
So I think that's all. Those are all the questions we had for you. Any last words you'd like to give us about leadership, and just like what some good advice would be as we move into our careers and start being leaders?
Tim?
I think you hit it perfectly before. You said remember where you came from and where you want to go, and just be true to yourself. Don't change who you are. I mean, you're going to need to learn new tactics, new techniques. You're gonna have to change some things, but don't change at your core. Don't change who you are. And I think that was really good advice she gave. It's true.
Yeah. So always keep your goal at sight, right? Always keep your goal at sight. Make sure it's a reachable goal, and remember that you need other people to help you achieve that goal. So you never want to burn bridges. Never want to burn bridges. Build that trust, and never have an agenda that's just for yourself. A good leader is a servant leader. And that means you are going to serve others while you continue to lead. It's not just about you. It's about a team. And together, everyone achieves more. I know that's such a stupid saying. That's an old saying, but it's so true. It's about being together. And in today's society, you see our leaders being very self-serving, and that's scary. So I just plead, as this generation goes into the workforce, that you become servant leaders, and remember where you are. Just because you have and become successful doesn't mean you have to change yourself as a person. And that's key. And I think that's what's kept, myself successful. I came from very, very, immigrant parents. They came here with nothing, not a dime. I never got any of my positions through networking. I just got it on my own. And I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but we need more people like those immigrants that came in. They're hardworking. They put their nose to the ground and they get what they need done. So be good people. And that's all it takes. Be good.
Yeah.
Stay true to yourselves.
Well said.
And don't worry about people pleasing. Don't worry about people pleasing. That's the biggest mistake, because Tim will tell you, the minute you bend the rules.
Well, that's one lesson you've taught me, and it's so true.
The minute you bend your rules for someone, they're going to expect more, and it may not be within the rules. So stick to the rules. It's a simple formula. All right, guys?
Yeah, that's great advice. Alex, Angela, do you have anything else?
No, that was great. Thank you for coming and being available to do this interview with us.
Oh, it was my pleasure to meet you all. I think you guys will do great.
I'd just like to say, I think both of you guys are troopers, and absolutely amazing what you guys are doing. Hopefully there's not a COVID spike coming up soon, but
Well,
Congrats
there's
to
a
you
spike,
guys.
honey. So stay safe out in Baltimore and don't bring
Yeah.
it home to me. Okay, there's a spike. But the key is just good practice. It's avoidable.
You guys are wonderful. Thank you
Yeah,
so
thank
Yeah,
much.
you.
thank you
Alright,
guys so
guys.
much.
Take
Yeah.
care. Have
Nice
a
to
great
meet you all.
day.
Have a good
Nice to meet
day.
you guys too.
All right, bye, guys.